We're going to start off by talking about former President Trump speaking during that final night of the RNC later tonight. He is expected to call for unity in the aftermath of that shooting. Joining me now is political reporter Morgan McKay with more on what we can expect later. Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll get to that speech in just a second because obviously that's going to be such a momentous point in this whole thing. But let's talk about night two, because you heard some speakers from Nikki Haley to Vivek to Ron DeSantis. I felt like, and I watched it, I felt like there was that unity, challenging through all the speeches. Did you see the same thing?
So I was listening to one expert this morning, Bianca, and he said that, all of these conventions, Republican and the Democratic convention, they're pretty much infomercials for their brand. And so I think we heard that in a sense. Some of the speakers trying to rally up and excite their base, for example, Donald Trump Jr. But then we also saw the former president's granddaughter come out and really humanize Trump, talk about him as Trump the grandpa.
Yeah.
Now, also last night, the Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, he accepted the party's nomination for vice president, and he came out and he said, he really talked about his impressive story, his background, some of the hardships he had to overcome. And he talked about his mother struggling with addiction, his time in the Marines, and he also set up a real contrast of himself with President Joe Biden. Take a listen here.
Joe Biden has been a politician in Washington for longer than I've been alive. For half a century, he's been the champion of every major policy initiative to make America weaker and poorer.
So I think we're going to hear a lot more of that tonight from the former president.
Speaking about the former president, sometimes you can almost never expect what he's going to say. He can kind of change things around, but he's saying that his whole speech was going to be changed around after that incident on Saturday. Do you think he's going to stick to that plan?
I think the only predictable thing about Trump is his unpredictability. However, I do think you're right. I think he said he tore up his speech and he wrote a whole new one after the assassination attempt over the weekend. And so I think we're going to see, somewhat of a call for unity. And you are seeing it, throughout the RNC. He had a lot of his major opponents come out on stage and talk about him and just really give their endorsement, encouraging voters to vote for him. And I think that was a really smart move by Trump's team.
Anything else that we can look forward to being the last night of the RNC?
I think a lot more excitement. I think it was interesting to see yesterday some of his supporters, they taped up their ear in support of Trump.
Oh boy.
So that was a little hilarious, but I think they're just trying to show some unity and some support for him.
Any way they can support, we see. All right, Morgan, thanks so much. Appreciate it.